A millionaire kicked a poor student out of a restaurant, but when he found out who saved his daughter from the river, he couldn't believe his eyes. Donato was born and raised in a small coastal town. His childhood was filled with sunny days, the sound of ocean waves, and happy times spent with friends, boys just as carefree as he was. Donato was always the life of the party, and other kids were drawn to him. He was the one who came up with games and fun activities that captivated everyone. Moreover, Donato had a great love for animals. His parents had an old but large house with a yard where cats, rabbits, chickens, and goats lived. But Donato loved dogs the most, and they always held a special place in his heart. The first dog he befriended was an old black and white shepherd named Luna. She was a loyal companion to his family and had been by Donato's side throughout his childhood. "Luna, let's play," he would shout, throwing a ball, his four-legged friend's favorite toy. Luna would joyfully chase after the ball and bring it back to the boy, wagging her tail happily. Donato and Luna were almost inseparable. They ran to the sea together, walked in the park, and spent all their time together. Donato often noticed that his friends were a bit envious of him. Many of them were not allowed to have pets. Donato always felt sorry for the stray dogs in the streets of his town and tried to feed them. His heart overflowed with love for these animals, and one day, he decided to take their rescue seriously. His parents supported Donato's idea. His father helped build a special enclosure where Donato and his friends would bring stray puppies. They fed and cared for them and did their best to find them new owners. The kids put up posters on the streets, in local shops, and in markets, telling everyone about the puppies looking for a home. Thanks to Donato and his friends' efforts, many of the dogs were eventually adopted by families. The puppies that Donato cared for taught him important things: loyalty, compassion, and responsibility. Through caring for dogs, Donato and his friends learned that every life matters and that even small acts of kindness can change the world for the better. As Donato grew older, he dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. He wanted to spend his life helping animals, especially dogs. In school, he began to study biology and chemistry diligently to prepare for university. Donato's parents supported his dream and were proud of their son's kindness and determination. When the time came to take the exams, Donato passed them successfully and was accepted into a university in the capital. Now, Donato had to leave home, leaving his parents and Luna behind. The evening before his departure, Donato sat on the porch of his childhood home with his beloved dog. He stroked her and scratched her behind the ears. "Luna, you will always be my friend. Thank you for teaching me so much," Donato said. His eyes glistened with tears as he realized he would no longer be able to spend as much time with Luna. His childhood had ended. New discoveries, meetings, and achievements lay ahead. Luna seemed to sense this too. She quietly lay beside him, looking at her beloved owner with trusting and loving eyes. Donato couldn't hold back his tears and started to cry. Luna whimpered softly. They sat on the porch late into the night, and when Donato's eyes began to close, he went to his room to get some sleep. He had an early start ahead of him. His parents drove Donato to the station, and when he boarded the train, his mother wept bitterly. Luna was not taken to the station, and Donato sighed, thinking of his beloved dog. He wiped a tear from his cheek and waved to his parents. Then he sat by the window and watched as the fields and lonely trees passed by. Now, he felt more strongly than ever that a new chapter of his life had begun, full of challenges and opportunities, and despite the homesickness, Donato was filled with enthusiasm and determination. His first encounter with the university left a strong impression on him: spacious lecture halls, modern laboratories, and a huge library filled with veterinary books. Donato knew that difficulties awaited him, as well as interesting meetings and acquaintances. The curriculum was intense and required full dedication. Donato attended lectures on animal anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and other important subjects. Every day he learned something new about the structure and function of animal bodies. The lectures were often accompanied by practical classes in the laboratories. Donato enjoyed studying microscopic samples, conducting experiments, and performing analyses. He understood that every detail was important for his future profession. One of the most exciting moments was the practice at the university veterinary clinic. Here, Donato could observe the work of experienced veterinarians and even assist them in treating animals. "I love studying. It's so interesting," he told his parents over the phone. "I can't wait to apply my new knowledge in practice." Every time Donato called his parents, he didn't forget to ask about Luna. She was always in his heart and memory, despite his life changing so dramatically and him making new acquaintances. Donato was fortunate. His friends shared his interests and passion for animals. They studied for exams together, discussed complex topics, and supported each other in difficult times. After classes, Donato and his friends often went to clubs, cafes, and cinemas. The capital city life captivated him. There was so much to see and do that he didn't want to miss the opportunities that had opened up to him. But he also remained true to his love for animals and volunteered at one of the city's animal shelters. The young man took care of the dogs, fed them, and walked them. Donato even had a favorite there, a black Newfoundland named Rocky. He often took Rocky for walks, and they sometimes roamed half the city, exploring all the parks and running along the rocky riverbanks. In the capital, Rocky became Donato's best friend, although, of course, he never forgot about Luna. Sometimes the young man dreamed that one day he would take Rocky home, introduce him to Luna, and the three of them would run across the fields and sit on the porch in the evenings, gazing at the stars. Of course, these were just dreams for now because Donato still had a long way to go in his studies. But he was confident that as soon as he had his own place, he would become Rocky's rightful owner. One evening, as the young man and the dog were returning home after a long walk around the neighborhood, something unexpected happened. They were walking along the river, enjoying the silence and fresh air, when suddenly the dog became alert and started barking, rushing toward the shore. "What's wrong, Rocky?" Donato exclaimed, running after the dog. They reached the water's edge, and in the middle of the river, Donato saw a girl desperately trying to stay afloat. The current was strong, and she was clearly struggling against it. Her cries for help grew louder. "Help! I'm drowning! Save me!" she shouted, flailing in the water. The current was relentlessly pulling her farther from the shore. Donato realized that he needed to act immediately. He quickly took off his shoes, threw off his shirt and pants, and plunged into the water. However, his dog, Rocky, was faster. The dog jumped into the river and swam towards the girl with incredible speed. "Hold on, Rocky is almost there," Donato shouted, knowing that this would help the drowning girl hang on a little longer. Rocky reached the girl, and as she grabbed onto him, she was finally able to relax a bit. The dog turned towards the shore, using all his strength and endurance to fight the treacherous current, while the girl held tightly to his back. When they reached Donato, he swam alongside them, ready to assist at any moment. When the trio finally reached the shore, Donato helped the girl out of the water. She was trembling from the cold and fear. Donato threw a dry shirt over her and hugged her to warm her up. "Thank you so much. You saved my life," the girl said, almost in tears. She felt very weak but was immensely grateful to her rescuers. "It was all Rocky," Donato replied. "He was the first to notice you and rushed to help." Rocky sat next to them on the shore, his fur wet, but his eyes gleaming with joy and pride. He clearly understood that he had performed a heroic act. "How did this happen?" Donato asked the girl. "I'm a runner," the girl began to explain. "As I was running, I got very hot and decided to take a swim. I didn't notice how far I had swum, and the current began to carry me away from the shore. I was so scared. How lucky I am that you were nearby." With these words, the girl thanked the young man again and patted Rocky on the head. "My name is Donato, this is Rocky, and what's your name?" the young man asked. "Dolores," the girl replied with a smile. Donato noticed how beautiful she was. "Nice to meet you, Dolores," he said. "Now we need to find your clothes." Dolores nodded, and they slowly walked along the shore, trying to find the place where she had left her things. As they walked, they talked about what they each did in life. When Donato mentioned that he was studying to become a veterinarian and was a volunteer at a dog shelter, Dolores nodded approvingly. "Rocky is a wonderful dog," Dolores said. "Dogs are the most loyal friends. And being a veterinarian is a very honorable and worthy profession." Donato was pleased by the girl's words. "Yes, Rocky always helps me in difficult times. His sincerity and loyalty make me believe in the best in life." Dolores, in turn, told him that she was studying to become a journalist and wanted to become a well-known columnist in a major magazine. Donato looked at the girl with admiration. He had never been good at expressing his thoughts on paper. "Could you write about the shelter where Rocky lives? There are many dogs there looking for owners," Donato suggested hopefully. To his surprise, Dolores nodded. "I'd be happy to do that. I have connections in various newspapers, and I'll ask them to publish my article in their columns." Donato thanked the girl from the bottom of his heart. Finally, they found her clothes, and Dolores put them on. Donato suddenly realized that he didn't want to say goodbye to her. The young people exchanged phone numbers, and the young man led Rocky back to the shelter. The next day, Donato called Dolores and invited her to take a walk in the park on Sunday to enjoy nature and each other's company. He chose a beautiful city garden with green alleys, blooming flower beds, and a quiet pond for their walk. The young people agreed to meet at the park entrance. Donato, along with Rocky, arrived a little earlier and waited for Dolores, turning his face to the morning sun and watching the passers-by. Soon, he saw the girl walking towards him with a smile on her face. "Hi, Dolores. You look wonderful," Donato remarked admiringly as she approached. Dolores was dressed in a light summer dress and a wide-brimmed hat that shielded her face from the sun. The girl's eyes sparkled with joy. "Hi, Donato." "Hi, Rocky," Dolores exclaimed. "Thanks for the compliment." The young people began walking along the shady park alleys, with Rocky running around them, sniffing and exploring everything that caught his attention. "This park is so beautiful," Dolores shared. "I love walking here." "Yes, it's my favorite place in the city," Donato replied with a smile. "That's why I invited you here." During their walk, the young people talked a lot about their dreams and plans for the future. Donato talked about his studies at the university and how he would like to open his own animal clinic one day. "That's a wonderful idea," Dolores encouraged him. "I'm sure you'll succeed." Donato was pleased to hear these words. Walking along the alleys, the young people reached a small pond surrounded by greenery. There, they decided to have a picnic. Donato spread a blanket on the grass and took fresh fruit, sandwiches, and drinks out of his backpack. Dolores was pleasantly surprised. She sat down on the blanket, took off her hat, and placed it beside her. Her hair fell beautifully over her shoulders, and Donato couldn't help but admire the girl. Rocky ran up to the young man, and he took out a treat for him as well. Dolores smiled. "Rocky is so sweet," she said. The young people had a wonderful time, and when it was time to say goodbye, they agreed to meet the following week. On Friday, Donato invited Dolores to the movies to see a funny romantic comedy. Both the young man and the girl enjoyed it. They laughed heartily at the jokes, and at the end of the film, Dolores even shed a tear. After the movie, the young man called a taxi for the girl, and she kissed him on the cheek before getting into the car. Donato was pleasantly surprised and happy. He walked home, humming a cheerful tune. Donato felt that with each meeting, he was becoming more and more enchanted by Dolores. The young people continued to meet every weekend. They often walked with Rocky in the park or went to cafes, when one day, Dolores suggested writing an article about their beloved dog. The young man eagerly agreed. Dolores brought a camera to their meeting and took quality photos of Rocky. When the article was ready, the girl sent it to Donato before showing it to anyone else. "Do you like it?" she asked in a message. Donato replied that the article turned out wonderfully. "Rocky is going to be a real star," he wrote, and Dolores replied with a thumbs-up emoji. The following week, the article was published in a well-known city magazine. Where did Dolores get such connections? After all, she's just a student, Donato thought in amazement when he saw the photos of Rocky on the cover. In the article, Dolores also mentioned the shelter where the dog was staying. Donato felt a bit scared that someone might adopt Rocky and he would no longer be able to walk with his loyal friend. But when the young man read the article to the end, he realized he had nothing to worry about. Dolores mentioned that Rocky already had a loyal friend and almost owner. Donato breathed a sigh of relief. However, Rocky's life did indeed change after the article was published. Other publications now also wanted to write about him. He was even invited to appear on television to star in a commercial for a popular dog food brand. The shelter didn't mind, so Donato and Dolores went to the studio with the dog. "Well, Rocky, are you ready to become a star?" the young man asked with a laugh as they entered. The dog was a little nervous, but Dolores quickly reassured him. "Everything will be fine, Rocky. You'll do great." On set, they were already expected by a team of professionals, a director, cameraman, and even animal trainers. Everyone was impressed by Rocky's smart and well-mannered behavior. "What a wonderful dog," remarked the director. "He's perfect for our commercial." The set was already prepared, depicting a cozy living room with a soft carpet and an armchair by the fireplace. In the center of the room was a bowl of dog food. The first task for Rocky was to approach the bowl and start eating the food with appetite. The trainer quickly taught the dog some commands and used them to explain what needed to be done. Rocky flawlessly completed the task. His naturalness in front of the camera amazed everyone present. "Excellent, Rocky. You're a true professional," praised the director. In the next scene, the dog had to play with a ball with a young actor about 12 years old. Rocky again perfectly fulfilled his role. "This is just incredible. He does everything so easily," exclaimed the cameraman. One of the most touching moments of the shoot was Rocky's interaction with a little actress named Sophia. The girl needed to hug the dog and pat his head. When Sophia approached him, Rocky immediately felt at ease with her. "Rocky, you're so sweet," said the girl. In response, the dog gently nudged her hand with his head. Sophia patted him. It looked adorable, and this moment melted the hearts of the entire crew. Dolores even wiped a tear from her cheek. When all the shots were completed, the director approached Donato and shook his hand firmly. "Thank you so much. Rocky is a real talent. I'm sure the commercial featuring him will be a hit." Donato felt proud and smiled broadly at the director. "Yes, Rocky is an amazing dog," he agreed. A few weeks later, the commercial with Rocky appeared on TV and online. It caught the attention of thousands of people who eagerly awaited Rocky's appearance on screen. Viewers discussed the dog's incredible acting skills. Rocky became a beloved star. The shelter received numerous letters and calls from people all over the country. They all admired Rocky, and many wanted to adopt him, offering generous sums of money. But the shelter responded that he already had an owner. Donato was very grateful to the owner for his kindness and honesty. He knew full well that Donato couldn't bear to be separated from Rocky and refused to take money from those who offered it. Very soon, Rocky became a real star and was invited to participate in the shooting of a feature film. This news shocked and surprised Donato. He couldn't believe what was happening. Dolores carefully studied the script, and she liked it very much. It was a story about a boy and his loyal dog who overcome many hardships and adventures together. The filming lasted about 3 months, and during that time, Donato had to forget about his studies. Every morning, he picked up Rocky from the shelter and took him to the set, where the director, cameraman, makeup artists, and actors were already waiting. Rocky quickly bonded with everyone and always listened to commands, diligently completing all the necessary tasks. A few months later, the movie hit the big screen and became a real hit among viewers of all ages. Critics also gave it positive reviews. Now Rocky was talked about as a star dog, and people were amazed that he still lived in a shelter. With the money Rocky earned from the movie, the shelter owner bought a new facility and all the necessary supplies for the animals. Dolores wrote about this in her latest article. Now many wanted to invite Rocky for more filming, but Donato told the press that the dog was taking a break. He wanted to walk freely with Rocky in the park again, run along the river, and wander the streets. However, this had become much more difficult. Everyone recognized Rocky, and everyone wanted to pet him. Fortunately, the dog didn't mind. He loved the attention and was kind to everyone. During the filming, Donato and Dolores saw each other much less than before. Now that everything was behind them, the young man wanted to make up for lost time. He often invited her for walks, to cafes, and to the theater. The young people grew closer, realizing that they enjoyed each other's company. They were drawn to each other like magnets. Donato realized that he was in love and felt that Dolores felt the same way. One day, he wanted to do something special for her. Donato found a part-time job and worked hard all week, and on Sunday, he invited Dolores to an upscale restaurant. She was very surprised, but gladly accepted the invitation. The young couple agreed to meet at 8 in the evening at the restaurant Golden Antelope, known for its exquisite dishes and cozy atmosphere. Donato had reserved a table in advance, then went to the barber, returned home, put on a suit, and headed to the restaurant. He arrived much earlier than the appointed time and waited for his beloved with great anticipation. When Dolores approached the restaurant, Donato greeted her with a smile. "Good evening, Dolores. You look as beautiful as ever," he said. Dolores was dressed in an elegant light blue dress that highlighted her gracefulness. "Thank you, Donato," she said with a coquettish smile and, taking his arm, entered the restaurant. The hostess led the young couple to their table and brought them the menu. Candles were lit in the hall, and soft, pleasant music was playing. The young people began to choose their dishes. "I've heard they make the best seafood in town here," Donato said. "What do you think? Should we try the shrimp and garlic sauce or the grilled salmon?" "I really like how they make the shrimp here," Dolores admitted. Donato couldn't believe what he heard. "Have you been here before?" he asked. Dolores nodded, a little embarrassed. Donato felt hurt. He wanted to make the evening special for her. "My father often brought me here when I was younger," Dolores confessed. Donato felt a bit relieved. At first, he feared that his beloved had been here with another guy. Then he thought, it turns out that Dolores has a wealthy father. "So, shrimp for you?" Donato asked. Dolores nodded. "I want to remember the taste from my childhood," she admitted. When the waiter took their order and left, the young couple began chatting about various topics. They discussed Rocky's fame, Donato's studies, and Dolores's new articles. The young man took the girl's hand and moved closer to her when suddenly a stern voice shouted, "Don't touch her." Donato and Dolores flinched in surprise. When they looked up, they saw a stern older man with graying hair standing in front of their table. He frowned at Donato. "How dare you touch her?" he burst out. Donato was completely confused. "Who is this man?" he whispered to Dolores. "This is my father," she answered, embarrassed. With that, Dolores stood up and placed her hand on the man's shoulder to calm him down. "Dad, I'll explain everything to you," she said gently. "I can see everything perfectly well," Dolores's father snapped. "No, Dad, please listen before you make any judgments. This is Donato, my friend," she introduced the young man. Dolores's father looked at Donato with a cold expression. "By his suit, I can see that he isn't wealthy." "What does he do?" he asked his daughter as if the young man next to her didn't exist. "I'm studying to be a veterinarian," Donato replied with defiance. "And yes, I'm not rich." "But does that really matter?" Dolores's father looked at the young man with disdain. "What do you think? I won't allow any poor boy to be around my daughter." Dolores turned pale upon hearing these words. "Dad, how could you?" she whispered. But her father remained resolute and more than skeptical. My daughter deserves the best, he said coldly. I'm sure I can provide a decent life for Dolores, Donato replied. As soon as I get my diploma. But Dolores's father didn't let him finish. That's just a pipe dream, he sneered. Dolores gave her father a pleading look and tried to soften the situation. Dad, Donato is very hardworking and determined. He always strives for the best. And he loves animals. But the man wasn't ready to accept his daughter's arguments. Dolores, this is ridiculous. You can't buy a house or a car with a love for animals. The man's words hurt Donato, but he knew he had to remain polite. However, inside, he was boiling with anger. Who does he think he is to talk like that? He doesn't know me at all. Dolores's father is just an arrogant snob. Donato thought. The young man took a deep breath and was about to tell the man that he planned to open his own clinic in the future, but Dolores's father interrupted him harshly. You're not suitable for my daughter. I'll ask you to leave this establishment. Dolores couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was deeply shocked by this turn of events and tried to intervene. Dad, Donato is dear to me. Why are you doing this? But her father remained unwavering and was not about to heed his daughter's words. Dolores, he must leave right now. Donato felt that he could no longer stay in the restaurant. He rose from his chair and, looking sadly at Dolores, said in a quiet voice, I'm sorry it turned out this way. I'll always be there if you need me, Dolores. With these words, Donato turned and headed for the door, feeling the weight of disappointment and hurt. That evening was a test for Donato and Dolores's relationship. Despite everything, they both knew one thing: their feelings were genuine and true. The young couple was ready to fight for their happiness, overcoming obstacles. In the evening, Dolores sent Donato a message, once again apologizing for her father's rude behavior. The young man couldn't understand why the fact that he wasn't wealthy bothered the man so much. In his reply, Donato directly asked Dolores about it. She explained that her father was a well-known businessman and millionaire. He wasn't always like this, but now, to my great regret, my father judges people by their wealth, she wrote. Reading this, Donato was shocked. He had no idea that Dolores came from such a wealthy family. She had never acted arrogantly or selfishly, neither with Donato nor with others. Therefore, he never imagined that she was the daughter of a millionaire. Now, much of her father's behavior made sense. Donato felt hurt and bitter, but he was proud that Dolores hadn't become conceited and always behaved like a regular person. I hope that in time, things will work out between us, and her father will finally accept me, Donato thought. Now, he felt an even stronger urge to finish university with honors and open his own clinic as soon as possible. I'll show that arrogant jerk. Donato thought, not too respectfully. He threw himself into his studies with renewed vigor and didn't see Dolores for a whole week. On Sunday, he invited her for a walk again, but she replied that she couldn't go. Donato felt sad but didn't mention it to Dolores. He decided to spend the weekend with Rocky at the park, where he could enjoy the fresh air and active games. The weather was perfect, clear skies, sunshine, and a light breeze. Donato put on sports pants, comfortable sneakers, and a t-shirt, while Rocky was ready for new adventures with a bright collar around his neck. Ready for a walk, buddy? Donato asked, patting Rocky on the head. The dog barked joyfully in response and wagged his tail. They left the shelter and walked to the park. As soon as they entered the gates, Rocky ran ahead, exploring every blade of grass and bush. Donato followed him and stopped at a large green clearing where they could play. Donato threw a ball, and Rocky caught it in midair, then returned to him with the prize in his teeth. They played like this for several hours, enjoying each other's company. After some active time, the young man and the dog decided to rest by the pond. Donato spread a blanket on the grass, and Rocky lay down next to him, breathing heavily. You've earned a rest, Donato said, stroking his back and thinking about Dolores. What was she doing now? As the sun began to set, Donato took Rocky back to the shelter. Each time, it became harder for him to say goodbye to his dear friend. Donato wanted to get his own place as soon as possible so he could take Rocky with him for good. But for now, it was just a dream. Donato bit his lip, remembering Dolores's father's words. Anger filled him, giving him the energy to accomplish things. Back home, Donato sat down with his textbooks again. He had already outpaced his classmates, studying material several chapters ahead. But it wasn't enough for Donato. He understood that if he wanted to become a successful and wealthy doctor, he needed to study and be the best in his field. He worked hard all week, and on Friday evening, he texted Dolores to ask how she was doing. But she didn't reply. Donato waited all evening, but in vain. So he decided to call her the next day. Dolores answered, but her voice didn't sound cheerful at all. "Dolores, hi. It's Donato. How are you? How have you been? I waited all evening for you to respond to my message yesterday." "Hi, Donato," the girl replied sadly. "I wasn't in the mood to respond." Donato was surprised and didn't know what to say at first. "But what happened? Who ruined your mood?" Dolores sighed. "You know who." Donato understood everything and smiled bitterly. "Your dad?" "Yes," Dolores answered quietly. "What did he do this time?" Donato asked. "Dad decided that we should move to another country," the girl sighed sadly. Donato couldn't believe his ears. Dolores was leaving? How could this be possible? "Why," the young man exclaimed in astonishment. "It's all because of you," Dolores replied with bitterness. "I tried to talk to him, to explain that you've become a close friend, but he didn't want to listen. He said that since I'm so stubborn, he'll be even more determined to protect me from you." "He said that? Just like that?" Donato asked, still not believing what was happening. "Yes." Dolores responded, her voice filled with tears. "There's nothing I can do." "When are you leaving?" Donato asked, his heart sinking. "Tomorrow morning," the girl replied. "I've already packed my suitcase." Everything blurred before Donato's eyes. He couldn't lose the one he loved. He had to think of something quickly. And suddenly, an idea popped into his head. Donato jumped up, quickly dressed, and rushed to the shelter. There, he took Rocky, asked Dolores for her address, and went to her place with the dog. The house where the girl's family lived was the epitome of luxury and elegance. It was located in the heart of the city and was a majestic mansion surrounded by a garden with tall trees. In front of the entrance, Donato saw a wide terrace with wrought iron railings, decorated with flower pots and lanterns. Donato and Rocky stopped in front of the tall carved gates and rang the bell. They were let in, and they walked along the path covered with white pebbles to the massive oak door with intricate carvings. The door opened, and Dolores's father appeared on the threshold. His brows were furrowed, and his arms were crossed over his chest. "What do you want, young man? I've already told you to stay away from my daughter. You're not a match for her." Sensing the man's mood, Rocky barked unfriendly. Dolores's father looked at him in surprise. "Why did you bring a dog here?" the man exclaimed angrily. Donato was about to say that this was not just any dog but the most famous one in town when Dolores appeared on the doorstep. "Rocky," she exclaimed joyfully. "You're here too." Donato felt a slight pang of jealousy but realized it was silly. Everyone loved Rocky, and Dolores hadn't seen him in a long time. He calmly watched as the girl petted the dog on the head. "Get out of here with your dog." "No one invited you," the businessman shouted. Dolores turned to her father and exclaimed, "Dad, you don't know anything. This dog saved my life." The man looked puzzled. "What are you talking about, Dolores? Are you making something up to get your way?" he asked uncertainly. Dolores began telling her father the story of how she met Donato when he and his loyal friend saved her from the river. Her father couldn't believe his ears. "Why didn't you tell me about this earlier, darling?" the man exclaimed. This is terrible. Your life was in danger, and I knew nothing about it. I didn't want to upset you, Daddy. Dolores replied. Maybe now you'll at least let Donato and Rocky come inside? Dolores's father noticeably softened and, nodding, went inside. Dolores took Donato's hand and led him into the house. At the doorstep, she quickly and discreetly kissed him. I missed more than just Rocky, she confessed, and Donato felt like he was on cloud nine. The living room where Dolores led him was the heart of the house. It was a spacious room with high ceilings and large windows. In the center of the room was a marble fireplace with soft sofas and armchairs along the walls. Several paintings by famous artists hung above the fireplace, and the floor was covered with a plush, fluffy carpet. Donato explained to Rocky that he couldn't step on the carpet because his paws were dirty from the walk, and the smart dog sat at the entrance to the room. Dolores's father was resting in one of the armchairs, while Dolores and Donato sat on the sofa. A tense silence hung in the living room. Dad, Dolores finally said. I hope after the story I told you, you'll change your opinion of Donato. He's an honest, decent, and brave person. If it weren't for him and Rocky, I would have died. Not every wealthy guy would be brave enough to jump into a river to save an unknown girl. Her father listened to her in silence. Maybe you're right, Dolores. I sincerely thank Donato for saving you. But he should still leave. Donato couldn't hold back. Why do you measure everything by money? He asked. Because I can't change who I am, the businessman replied firmly. The young man bit his lip, desperately thinking. Then let me offer you something, Donato said unexpectedly. Dolores looked at him in surprise. What could you possibly offer me, poor boy? Her father asked mockingly. The dog you see before you is not an ordinary dog. This is Rocky, who became famous throughout the country for his role in a movie. If you agree, you can sponsor the next film in which Rocky will star and take the profits for yourself. But in return, you must allow me to date Dolores. The businessman looked at Donato in disbelief. Is this really the famous Rocky? He asked his daughter in amazement. She nodded in response. He's the most wonderful dog in the world. Rocky the superstar. Dolores replied, looking affectionately at the dog. Her father thoughtfully stroked his chin. I'll think about your offer, young man, he said. Dolores looked at her father with shining eyes. If you agree, I'll write the script for this movie, she said dreamily. When Donato and Dolores stepped onto the porch, she embraced her beloved tightly. I'm sure my father will agree, the girl said, but for some reason, Donato didn't share her enthusiasm. What's wrong, Donato? Why do you look so sad? Dolores asked in surprise. You see, I shouldn't have used Rocky to improve my relationship with your father. It was reckless. But why? Dolores didn't understand. Rocky has already been in movies, and he enjoyed it. The thing is, Rocky still belongs to the shelter, Donato replied. And I still don't have my own place to take him. I'm just a poor student. Your father is right about everything. I'm not worthy of you. There was so much bitterness in his words that Dolores involuntarily recoiled from Donato. If Rocky participates in the film, all the money should go to his rightful owner. But I promised your father that the money would go to him. I acted dishonestly, Donato admitted. Then you need to find a way to take Rocky, was all the girl said. With those words, she turned and went back into the house. Donato realized that now everything depended on him. The next day, he started looking for pet-friendly rental apartments. There were very few such places, and none were suitable. They were tiny studios where the huge Newfoundland wouldn't even be able to turn around. Then Donato started looking at ads for houses with a garden or at least a small yard. This time he got lucky and found a decent option. With a pounding heart, Donato dialed the number of the property owner. A cheerful male voice answered. Donato arranged a meeting, got ready, and a couple of hours later, went to see the house. It was exactly like the pictures and Donato liked it a lot. He imagined sitting on the porch with Rocky, enjoying the fresh air and the glow of the stars at night. However, the rent was quite high, and Donato couldn't afford to pay it every month. But the young man wasn't ready to give up. He said he would reserve the house, and the owner happily agreed. Donato also mentioned that he would be living there with a dog, and the landlord had no objections. "I'll definitely pay the first month's rent within a week," Donato promised. When he returned home, he immediately started browsing job ads. He got lucky and found a few promising options. He quickly called the employers and arranged interviews. The next day, Donato went to the meetings, and he managed to get a job at a construction site. He knew it would be hard to balance work and school, but he was determined to make it work. After requesting an advance, Donato paid the rent for the house and on the same day, picked up Rocky from the shelter. The dog couldn't believe what was happening. Now he was going to live in a spacious house with a green lawn to run on. The dog couldn't have dreamed of such a thing. He was very happy and grateful to Donato, who had now become his rightful owner. That evening, Dolores came to visit them. She was also very happy, and her eyes shone with love for Donato, Rocky, and their new home. "Now we'll always be together again," the girl rejoiced. She had already started preparing a script for the upcoming film in which Rocky was to play the lead role. Of course, Dad agreed. He loved the idea of the film, she explained. That night, Dolores couldn't sleep. Various movie ideas kept coming to her mind, and she couldn't decide which one to choose. Dolores thought that the best story for Rocky would be a touching tale of friendship and loyalty that would capture the hearts of viewers of all ages. Finally, just before dawn, inspiration struck Dolores. She decided to name the upcoming film Faithful Friend. The opening scenes would show a quiet, cozy town on the coast. The main character would be a little boy named Donato, who lives in a small house with his parents. He loves dogs and dreams of becoming a veterinarian to help animals. One morning, Donato accidentally finds a tiny, helpless Newfoundland puppy in the park. The boy is very surprised and feels sorry for the small creature. He takes him home and names him Rocky. Donato and Rocky become inseparable friends. They spend a lot of time together, playing ball, running on the beach, and exploring the town's surroundings. Dolores spent all morning writing sketches for the script and didn't go to bed until it was finished. When she finally stretched out on the sheets, the girl was completely happy. She believed that the future story would touch the hearts of viewers and inspire them to be kind and caring toward animals and each other. A couple more weeks passed, and Dolores' script was completely ready. Within a month, filming began. Rocky once again shone on set, and everyone was very pleased with him. The dog felt like a fish in water. Rocky is a natural actor. Dolores laughed. The film turned out to be more than touching and appealed to viewers of all ages. Dolores and Donato realized that the work they had done with Rocky and the entire team would not be in vain. The film with their beloved dog would delight children and adults for a long time. During the filming, Dolores' father finally got used to and accepted that Donato and his daughter were dating. He stopped chasing the young man away and finally gave Dolores his blessing. Shortly before the film's release, Donato proposed to Dolores, and she happily accepted. They got married, and Dolores moved into the rental house to live with her beloved husband and their loyal dog. A year later, Donato graduated from university with honors and started his own practice. A couple of years later, he fulfilled his long-held dream and opened a veterinary clinic. Together with Dolores and Rocky, he often visited his parents and their old dog Luna in the small seaside town. Luna and Rocky became friends, and Donato, Dolores, and his parents often sat in the garden in the evenings, quietly chatting and gazing at the stars.